Well, good afternoon and welcome to Lesson Study, Truly Inspired Professional Learning. Today is the first of a series of 3 lesson study webinars offered by CalPro, the California Adult Literacy Professional Development Project. It's a state leadership project of the California Department of Education, Adult Education Office. I'm Sue Pon, here with Jacques LaCour. And we're very excited to be here this afternoon, with you this afternoon. Jacques, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us why you're excited about lesson study?
Sure. I'm Jacques LaCour. Been in adult ed a long time as a teacher, coordinator, administrator, and professional development specialist. Been a consortium coordinator, and for the last 7 or 8 years, I've just been doing independent consulting work for adult ed. Just to sort of set the stage for this lesson study series of webinars in terms of what it means to me, back in my ancient history, when I was an ESL teacher at Mount Diablo Adult Education in Concord, my boss asked me to organize what was then called staff development, which is now morphed into professional learning. And I almost instantly found that I had a really deep passion for professional learning, and that's remained my passion ever since way back then. I've seen a lot of trends come and go, and I was involved in many of them myself. And I always had a sense of these trends offering good things, but always seeming that something was missing. It was good, but not quite good enough. And then in the around 2005, I went to work for Oakland Adult and Career Education. That's where Sue and I became friends and colleagues. And I experienced 2 professional learning approaches that kind of changed everything for me. And lesson study was one of them, and the one that impressed me the most. That lesson study was my eureka moment in professional learning. And since then, I've been advocating for lesson study to become more well-known and practiced in adult ed. So I'm very grateful to CalPro for this opportunity. No professional learning experience that I've been a part of has come close to lesson study in terms of powerful impact on teachers and on students, and that powerful impact happening in a very concentrated period of time. It's intensive and exciting and wonderful, and the teachers that I had the pleasure to work with said very similar things, that it was a completely different kind of professional learning experience, far and above anything else that they had participated in before as well. So I'm always excited to be a part of anything related to lesson study, and excited to continue to spread the gospel. And Sue, I'd like to turn it over to you to share your lesson study and professional background.
Sure. I was an adult education administrator in Oakland when we had 3 lesson study groups. And I'm here today because I'm inspired by the teachers who engaged in lesson study, their depth of learning and reflection. And I'd like to read a quote to you from one of them. "I have a new level of awareness of my students' actual abilities. Its, meaning lesson study, reshaped my starting point for designing lessons. Rather than start from a prescribed curriculum that is more dependent on clever or innovative activities, I am learning the importance of listening to my students' language needs first and move from there." So I hope that with this lesson study webinar series, we can inspire and encourage you to try lesson study in your program. Before we start, I wanted to let you know that we are also joined today by Laura Buell, who you have met, and Sachiko Oates from CalPro. To get started, we'd like to use Poll Everywhere to get to know you a bit. You can join Poll Everywhere through text or web access. You can click on the link in the chat. It will be coming soon, or access by web or text using the QR code or logging in. So let's take a moment for you to log in now. If this is your first time with Poll Everywhere, please know that your individual responses are anonymous, but they will be posted in an aggregate, so we get to see what everyone is thinking. Sachiko, do we have people logged in?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so here's your first question. People are already answering. Do you come to this webinar primarily as an administrator, instructor, or something other? And maybe the people who put other, if in the chat, you could let us know. I know I'm happy to see so many instructors here, because as you heard in my introduction, I saw the impact on teachers' learning and on their students. And it's good to have administrators here, because you need administrators to support and to make that happen. Thank you, Cindy. You're an ESL program coordinator. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And the second poll question is about your experience with lesson study. Perhaps it's brand new to you, or you've heard people talk about it. Maybe your colleagues or you yourself have participated in lesson study. Please respond through Poll Everywhere. Oh, a good number of people have heard about it. Very good. Jacques, any comments?
I wonder if the people who have heard about it could in the chat maybe say a word or two about what they heard or how they heard about it. I'd be curious to read a little bit more about that.
And it looks like at least one person has colleagues who have participated in this.
Yeah, love to hear about that too. I see Erin says that she did a program evaluation for a project that included lesson study. That's an interesting opportunity to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah.
All right, well, so as people are elaborating, Cindy says an administrator who has participated. That's good to hear, because then he or she will know what you're talking about when you hopefully go back and say you want it. All right, one more question. It's an open-ended question. What do you want to learn about in lesson study? What questions do you have? What is it all about? I think we'll get to that today. What is it exactly? Well, over the course of the 3 webinars, we'll increasingly get into more detail. How can it be implemented? Particularly come to webinar 3 for that.
Implementation seems to be on the minds of several people. Yeah.
So don't worry if you don't have any questions now. We will again ask you at the end, because that will help guide the next two webinars. Quite a few questions about implementation. Very good. Well, thank you very much. And we hope to address these questions during the next three webinars. Hope you will be able to join us. So now an overview of our time together this afternoon. The next slide is an overview of the series of the three webinars. Today, the first webinar will focus on the why and the what of lesson study. Next week, the second webinar will focus on the how. Those of you who asked questions about implementation will give a general overview today, but next week in webinar 2, go into more detail. And we're trying something new this time. Not CalPro is. Session 3 is office hours with your questions, where we will address questions that we didn't get to in webinars 1 and 2, and as well as any new ones. And particularly, we would like to focus on implementation at your site. So our objectives for this series are to increase student learning and to inspire effective professional learning. Participants will, in webinar 1, become familiar with lesson study and identify why it is effective and motivating. Today, we'll see some video clips of teachers engaging in lesson study so that you can see and hear what it might be like. In session 2, you will begin to understand the elements of each phase of the lesson study cycle in order to begin considerations for planning and implementation. And we will be fortunate to be joined by 2 adult education lesson study practitioners who will talk about their professional learning through lesson study. So that's next week, session 2. And session 3, the office hours, you will be able to more effectively plan and implement lesson study using recommendations and information received from the office hours opportunity to discuss options for your sites and programs. So that's what we hope to do in the next 3 weeks. Here's our agenda for this hour. After this overview, we'll get into the why and the what of lesson study. And in the wrap-up, we'll give you some time to reflect on what you've heard and give you some resources to pursue. So let's get into the why of lesson study. It's not just to increase student learning, but it fosters teachers' professional learning. So please take a moment to think about the most effective professional learning you have experienced and what made it effective. And if you can hold on to those thoughts for a few minutes, we're going to go to Poll Everywhere and to build a word cloud for effective professional learning. So in a word, a single word, what quality or characteristic made that professional learning effective? It was interactive. Yes. Exchange, time, ideas. It was concise. Adequate time, looks like. Practical. Exchange of ideas, efficient. So if as you know, with word cloud, if a word is repeated, it goes to the center and gets bigger. So interactive is repeated, in person, authentic, easy, knowledgeable. Very nice.
So we have a few comments in the chat. Creative from Toshka and easy to understand as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Practical. I love this because lesson study is practical.
I see creative and fun. It's can also be those things very easily.
Interactive remains to be one of the prime characteristics that makes good professional learning. At some point, we're going to have to move on, but this is fun. Thank you. Practical is rising to the top also.
Yes.
All right. So Jacques, tell us
Okay.
about effective professional learning.
Thank you, Sue. So on the next slide, you're going to see many of the same ideas that you just shared reflected. So there's a nice bit of overlap here, I think. And let's start with practical and interactive. So on the in the right column at the top, collaborative and safe, that the collaboration aspect of lesson study is extremely critical. It's a huge part of the process. It's the basis of the process. And so the interaction is nonstop in lesson study. Practical, if you go 2 bullets down from that, and the notion of research to practice is a common characteristic of every effective professional learning approach. Lesson study actually flips that a little bit. It's the practice is the research, and we'll explain that a little more thoroughly later. But if you take a look at this collection of qualities and characteristics, what you see is what years and decades of research have surfaced as the items that should be a part of any and every effective professional learning venture that we engage in. The more of these qualities that are built into a professional learning approach, the higher the likelihood for success in terms of what works. And I want to say a little bit about how we're defining what works, because we mean something pretty specific about that. And what we mean is that there is impact, measurable impact on teacher learning and student learning. So that's a little different from going to a workshop and taking some ideas back to your classrooms and picking and choosing what you may want to integrate into your practice. This is about kicking that up a notch, and that will become clearer as we go on. So on the next slide, I want to just share a little bit about a research article that was done in 2005. And this research project looked at almost 19,000 professional articles on professional learning. Out of those 19,000, they did an initial cut of a little under 500 that they thought were worth digging into a little bit more. From around 500, they narrowed it down even further to 45 articles, 45 studies that met their criteria for an even deeper dive. And their criteria has to do with impact. Did these professional learning approaches have clear, measurable impact on teacher learning and on student learning? Was there some data there for the people doing this meta study to really dig into, to come up with some conclusions about what works? So on the next slide, you'll see what their conclusions are. Their conclusions were, there are essentially only two approaches that put collaborating educators in a good position to create some impact. And those two approaches were lesson study and professional learning communities. The bullets you see on this slide describe the teacher impact without the data and the statistics, because the data and the statistics were different in all of the studies that they looked at. But these were the patterns that emerged that became very clear in terms of outcomes of well done lesson study or professional learning community approaches. So to look at this in a slightly different way, on the next slide, or actually I think we're going to a, yeah, thank you very much. This is the professional teaching and learning cycle. Essentially, every professional learning approach that actually works in terms of teacher impact and student impact follows this cycle in some way. The sequence of activities that you see here are reflected in all of the approaches that work. There's a focus on data. There, after choosing what data to focus on, there's a study of standards and materials related to the data that has pointed teachers in a direction that they want to pursue in terms of a specific area of learning to improve for students. Then they select instructional strategies and resources. They make a plan. The plan includes an assessment. They implement the plan. They look at the data that comes out of the implementation, and that data is usually student work. They analyze the student work and make a decision as to whether or not they want to refine what they do, or they might decide that they're satisfied that this cycle has produced the result that they want. And that's based on analyzing student work in kind of a data mindset way. So after that, teachers may move on to the next cycle, or they may choose to refine what they did in that cycle and go back a couple of steps and try it out again, implementing, analyzing, and adjusting. I see the question as to whether or not professional learning communities are the same as lesson study. Professional learning communities, well, has several different perceptions and interpretations. There is a very specific approach called the professional learning community approach. It is also the umbrella term for almost all of the professional learning approaches that follow this teaching and learning cycle. So it has a bit of a dual meaning. Lesson study is a type of professional learning community approach. It follows all of the same basic structures and principles that are done in a structured, disciplined professional learning community, but it has a particular kind of focus and outcome, and that will emerge as we proceed.
So this may be a good time to get into the what of lesson study. So what is lesson study? Lesson study has been in Japan for over a century and is the dominant form of professional learning there. And Sachiko probably knows this better than I do. In the Japanese language, there are two words in lesson study. The first one meaning live instruction or lesson. The second word meaning research, investigation, or study. So lesson study can often be referred to as research lesson. And in Japan, teaching is considered research. Teachers are viewed as researchers of their own practice. And we'll explore that in a bit.
Before we get into the specifics of this section, I want to acknowledge an individual and a source from which much of what we are presenting was derived. Dr. Catherine Lewis is the director of a project called the Mills Lesson Study Group. They have done a tremendous amount of work to help educators understand and implement lesson study. At the end of this presentation, you will see a link to the Mills Lesson Study Group website. And I want to encourage all of you now to take advantage of that when we, offline, of course, when we get to that point. But again, much of what we're presenting has been derived from Mills. So on the next slide, we're going to see the sequence of steps in the phases of lesson study: study, plan, teach, and reflect. Sachiko has posted a link to a handout if you want to see more detail about each of those phases, but that is what we're going to be doing now, looking at each of the phases. But just before we do that, Sue is going to provide a little bit of additional background.
So let's talk a bit about research lessons. So what is lesson study or a research lesson? And the description that comes next comes from a presentation by Catherine Lewis of the Lesson Study Group at Mills College that Jacques just mentioned. I'd like to start with talking about item number 3. What is a research lesson? It's a lesson that brings to life a goal or vision of education. What I've seen in is that can be things like critical thinking, something larger, problem solving that you want for your students. Then I'd like to talk about the second one, a planned lesson by anticipating student thinking. In research, that is your hypothesis, your theory. And then number 1, an actual classroom lesson with students observed by other teachers. That's you testing that hypothesis. And then number 4, recorded material, maybe video, audio, student work. That's your data and evidence of your hypothesis or your theory. And then another characteristic of a research lesson is then it is discussed by the school faculty and sometimes outside commentators. I saw that there was a comment, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, quite excited about a Japanese style. I could go on, but in Japan, it's lesson study affects the whole educational industry, including books. But I'll get back on track. So next is we'd like to emphasize that the research lesson is not the main product of lesson study. The lesson is a vehicle for improving student learning through teacher learning. And in a research lesson, teachers investigate their own teaching practice. One of the teachers from the school we'll see soon in the video described lesson study as an opportunity for teachers to be researchers, to test our knowledge of how our students think and understand the content and why it's important. And we hope that you'll be able to see that in the video. So how is lesson study or a research lesson different from more traditional professional learning? The next description comes from the lesson study group at Mills College. A lesson study includes a learning stance. It differs from mentoring or coaching in its emphasis on inquiry conducted by equals. And in this inquiry, teachers pose authentic questions about student learning. It includes, number 2, shared ownership and responsibility. When a lesson study group works together, the members feel that the lessons are our lessons, not your lesson or my lesson. And I would like to add to this accountability to each other on your team. And thirdly, lesson study emphasizes students, not the teacher. So you might have heard that there is the element of teachers observing in the classroom. They are there solely to investigate student learning, not how the teacher is teaching. So I think Jacques will, me next still, before Jacques.
There's a question in the chat. Could you say or repeat what you said about the learning stance?
That it starts with an inquiry, that teachers have a question about their students' learning, like they're not getting this. And why is that? And how maybe it's, do you have something to add to that, Jacques?
No, I think you nailed it, Sue. It's the learning stance means that you come into the collaboration process open and curious, and through the lesson study process, you learn more about how students think, and you respond to that by continuous improvement of how you construct your lessons, so you lessen the gap between so we as teachers, so what we intend students to learn and what they actually learn. So it's being curious about what's really happening when teaching and learning is going on.
I hope that answered your question. I think in the interest of time, we'll skip the next slide. And Jacques, maybe people can get a better picture by seeing the different phases.
All right. So now we're going to start giving some information about what happens in lesson study in each phase, and what teachers learn in each phase. So in the study phase, teachers choose a student learning focus. Usually it's through using data and our own knowledge of what students struggle with, just to choose a narrow focus of what we're going to collaborate on. And then we review anything and everything we can get our hands on to inform ourselves about what we need to know regarding this particular learning focus. So curriculum, instructional materials and practices, etc. And we share our own professional wisdom around our focus. What do we learn when we do that? Could you advance the, yeah, thank you. So as we're doing that, we deepen our data skills, our ability to interpret and use data. we really deepen our content knowledge because we're looking at all the standards and research and instructional materials that we think applies to the situation. We deepen our thinking about how students learn short-term and long-term relative to a unit or part of a curriculum that we are focusing on. And because lesson study has a fairly prescriptive series of steps with facilitation protocols attached to most of those steps, we really expand our abilities to facilitate a group in a highly focused and efficient and productive way. So that's, in a nutshell, what happens in the study phase. So after the study phase, we go on to the plan phase. So what do we do in the plan phase? We collaborate to develop the research lesson. Sue has already talked a little bit about the research lesson. We anticipate student thinking, behaviors, and responses. This is in bold and italics because this is one of the items that separates lesson study from many other professional learning approaches. There is a tremendous amount of collaborative attention paid to predicting exactly how students are going to respond at key junctures in the research lesson that you are creating collaboratively. And it forces a level of thought and analysis that is just not part and parcel of the average professional learning approach. It is one of the keys in lesson study. It's part of what separates it from most other approaches. So selecting effective materials to go into the research lesson and establishing a student data collection plan for the observation of the lesson. The lesson that we create collaboratively gets presented by one of us. The rest of us take notes on what students are doing during the lesson. So as we do this part, what do we learn? That's on the next half of the slide. And these are some of the things that emerge during this phase of lesson study. What's in the research and what we have heard from our colleagues who've participated is we get better and better at asking strategic questions to spark the kind of student thinking that will result in the learning that we're looking for. A better sense of how to predict student responses in the first place, better formative assessment strategies, and lesson planning techniques and formats that represent a continuous improvement for most of us who are participating, because the research lesson demands collectively more than individual lesson planning demands individually. The next phase is the teach and observe phase. So here's what teachers do in the teach and observe phase. We train observers to record the student data. So during the presentation of the research lesson, there is a consistent recording of how students are responding. That becomes the data that we'll look at together after the research lesson is executed. And that research lesson is taught by a volunteer or co-taught by a volunteer from the collaborative lesson study group. And again, the data that's collected is data on how students respond. You more or less don't have to collect any data on the lesson. All of us have created this lesson together. We're intimately familiar with the content and the flow of the lesson. It's our lesson. And so we don't have to pay that much attention to that. This gives us the incredible opportunity to focus almost exclusively on how students respond. It's a powerful perspective that individually we never really get a chance to fully observe and appreciate. So what do we learn during that? We refine the flow and the timing and prompts, tasks and questions in lesson planning and lesson execution. We become more perceptive about what students are doing, how they're doing it, and why in response to our lessons. We get more perspective about pre and post lessons, meaning were there some foundational skills that really needed to be taught before we taught this lesson, and exactly what students, what are students ready for if they've been successful in the research lesson. There's also a feeling that changes. Usually when lesson study groups start, people come in thinking this is going to help me and my students. By the time a couple of lesson study cycles are gone through, everybody starts to think that all of the students are our students, as opposed to my classroom, my students. It creates a level of trustful collaboration that goes far beyond the average teacher meeting and sharing kind of opportunity. Okay, so I want to say a little bit more about the observation and the debriefing. Again, it's focused on the student, it's focused on the lesson, it's not focused on the teacher. And what we grapple with as a group is, did students respond to our plan as we expected? In other words, did they learn exactly what we expected them to learn? If not, why not? What happened instead? What could we or should we do differently if we revise this lesson so we can get the objective that we were shooting for in the first place? And the constant question is, how can we get better at predicting students' responses to what we present? And then finally, the reflect phase. What teachers do in the reflect phase is we use a particular protocol to carefully, analytically debrief the research lesson and the work that preceded the execution of the research lesson. We analyze student responses and the learning results, and then we kind of make a decision. Are we satisfied with what we've done? In other words, did students hit the learning objective that we set for them, or did they not? And if they didn't, we revise the lesson and we try it again, because it was important to us right from the outset that students reach that particular learning objective. It's still important. So we revise it and we reteach it in a revised research lesson. And then once there's a level of satisfaction with the results of that, lesson study cycle, we assess implications for future teaching and learning. And then what we learn in that process is just better and better lesson design, lesson planning, and lesson delivery. Also, because the observation carefully looks at which students are getting it and which students are not getting it in the same class, we start to learn more and more exactly what works for which students or which groups of students. It gives us greater insights into student readiness and student learning. We become much better at choosing lessons that come before and after the main learning objective. And there is a powerful collaboration element and collegiality element that comes out of this that I personally have not seen in any other professional learning approach. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Sue, and I think we're going to see some examples.
Yeah, so we'll have an opportunity to see some teachers engaged in lesson study so you can get an idea of what it might sound and look like. We'll see a video clip of first see a video clip of teachers engaging in the study phase of lesson study. This video is entitled, "How Many Seats?" It's of 6 teachers in the San Mateo Foster City School District. I think they are elementary school teachers teaching a math lesson. And the goal is that students will discover a pattern, and they will represent the pattern as a rule. They will understand what a mathematical rule is and will be introduced to representing the rule as an equation. It's a very short video clip. We're jumping right into the middle of a teacher discussion during the study phase. What you'll see is teachers trying the math problem that they will be giving to their students to solve. This is in order for them to anticipate student thinking. You'll see the teachers struggle with their own understanding of the problem. As you view this short video clip, please observe, what are teachers learning in this phase? So Laura, if we could take a look at this. Thank you.
I thought when we added a triangle, we were adding 2. But the output chart here is adding 1. And
I discounted them.
I don't understand why that is, because what you showed.
Because the third one is now a combined one.
Oh, let's do this way.
Oh,
So maybe it would be a good time to
Wait a
have us
second
do the
here.
activity.
yeah, maybe.
Because if you have one triangle.
Thank you. So if you can put some of your observations in the chat, and I'm going to ask Jacques if you have any comments. In the interest of time, we need to move this along.
Yeah, when I saw that clip, it really reminded me of what I experienced when I helped some Oakland adult educators with their lesson study cycle. The openness about and the vulnerability about learning better and deeper your own subject matter was an amazing feature of lesson study. In a safe collaborative group, it is very common for members of the group to say, wow, I didn't realize that about whatever it is we're teaching, or that's an aspect of it that I never thought of. Those kinds of instances of increased awareness go a long way towards elevating everyone's knowledge and skill and ability to put all of that learning into practice. It's an amazing part of lesson study.
Yeah, just quickly to address some of the comments. It's a lesson plan that they are creating together, and they're trying the problem together before they present it to the students. And yes, team building throughout this whole process. So let me catch you up on this. So the next step was that the first teacher taught the lesson. And from the observations of that first lesson, these teachers found that the students could not complete, they could complete the worksheet chart, but they could not verbalize their reasoning. These teachers determined that actually the textbook worksheet chart hindered student thinking. So in the revision of the lesson plan, they removed the chart. They gave each student a unique problem, a different problem. And thirdly, they had students share their findings and methods in front of the class. Then another teacher taught this revised lesson. And this is the exciting part for me in lesson study is, how did the students respond and how can we do it differently? And we have an opportunity to see the revised lesson because different teachers are teaching it. The next video clip is at the very end of the lesson study cycle, where the teachers are reflecting on what had occurred. And this time, if you could listen for how or what did teachers learn in this complete cycle? Okay, Laura.
So we did make them think more.
Absolutely. From the focus on the counting. Having the kids talk about their counting, that was a big improvement.
Yeah.
Because we started to focus on the process of what's happening here.
Oh, that's right. That was an important point.
That was an important
So
improvement.
having the students have to describe their counting really got at their thinking a lot more. It also made the lesson more accessible to other kids. It gave other kids a lot of opportunities to hear, and think about what was going on in the lesson.
Right.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And like just a personal aha for me, when you had said that, the counting, I don't know if it was you, Jackie, or somebody had said in the first debriefing that the counting, we should really spend some time on having them share that. I thought, at first I thought, what, who cares about that? Did not see that as an important thing, because I personally did not see the pattern that the two ends are the +2. I never saw that. So it just shows that in all this math, well, it's in everything we teach, that we're only kind of as effective as our level of understanding. So we have to always keep pushing ourselves to delve into, especially like in elementary grades, the stuff is relatively simple. Like these kids today, +3. But like the why and how come, that's the challenge.
Thank you. So please put your observations in the chat. I don't know if we'll get a chance to discuss them. But Jacques, you want to?
Yes, and Sue and Sachiko and Laura, I'm going to speak to the next two slides, but I think I'll skip the two after them so we can have at least a couple of good wrap-up minutes. So how much time does lesson study take? This slide shows that it takes somewhere between 10 and 12 meetings over the course of time for the entire cycle to take place. And on the next slide, you'll see that the caveat there, it's 10 to 12 hours for an experienced lesson study team. For first timers, and the first couple of times that a lesson study team engages in a cycle, you need to add a good handful of hours to it, to 10 to 12, because it's not second nature yet, and you're learning what you're doing at the same time that you're doing it. So that takes a little more time. But once you get on a roll, 10 to 12 hours per cycle is pretty realistic. And it's recommended that two or three cycles over the course of a school year is just about the right number. It gives the right amount of time for each cycle, and a lot of learning can come out of it. Okay, and I think I'll skip the next two slides, and Sue, we can go straight to the wrap up.
Yeah, let's start to wrap up here. The next slide is the objectives for today, which you can read for yourself, but I'd like us to return to the title of this series, Lesson Study, Truly Inspired Professional Learning. You heard a bit about professional learning in general and specifically lesson study. Jacques, what are your thoughts on truly inspired professional learning?
Well, I think I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit here, but I'll just say I've never seen anything like it. And I've been around a long time. So what I saw was a level of openness, engagement, digging into figuring out what really works for students that I've never seen in any other kind of professional learning venture. One of the reasons it happens that way is that everybody on the team gets into the classroom together and gets to witness for themselves what works and what doesn't. It takes the learning to a completely new level.
So I hope that helps to answer the question, the difference between lesson study and PLC and other kinds of professional learning. We do want to give you some time to reflect on what you heard this afternoon. We had prepared a trio of questions, sometimes referred to as square, triangle, and circle. We'll skip the first one. And the second one is, what are 1, 2, 3 big points about lesson study that you're taking away today? And if you can do that through Poll Everywhere.
Sue, should I go over the resources slide while they're doing that, or do you want to keep it in sequence?
Let's see what Sachiko is.
Okay.
The poll isn't showing.
It's about 1 minute left.
Sachiko, can we have like 3 more minutes?
Laura, would that work?
Yeah, of course.
Because I think it's really important for people to reflect on what they've heard today.
I'm not, I don't know if people are in. I can't get in there.
Sachiko? Okay,
There we go.
so
Okay,
It's
thanks.
not working. Yeah.
There we go.
the people are getting in now.
Oh, okay.
So Sachiko, whenever you're ready, you can share.
Okay, 1, 2, 3 big takeaway points. Yes, a shift from me to we and mine to ours, a learning stance. I love lesson study because of the focus on students, yes. And there's more to come in the next 2 weeks. It is time intensive.
All professional learning that works is time intensive. That's
Again,
just part of the package.
I'm so glad that you heard the focus on how students learn and the focus on students. Yes. And that it comes from Japan.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's about our own professional learning. It seems at a pause now. We do want to ask the next question. What questions do you have now? So we can plan to address those in the next 2 sessions. I'm wondering if we need to see those. If people, Sachiko, do you think people can enter that in Poll Everywhere and Jacques can talk about the resources?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so we will see your questions after this webinar. So please put them in and Jacques will talk about the resources.
Okay, so if we can, thank you very much. I mentioned before Dr. Catherine Lewis and the lesson study group at Mills College. That is the topmost resource on this list. There is the URL for it. I can't say enough about this site. It has anything and everything you need to learn and to actually just start implementing your own lesson study project. It is brilliantly organized. It's incredibly clear. It's 100% free. It's one of the best professional learning sites on the planet. So I encourage you to take a look. There's a great article from Tools for Learning Schools that gives a brief description of lesson study. The video that we saw a couple of clips from today is also linked there if you want to see the video from start to finish, which is also very instructive. And then I've listed a couple of books that will guide educators to learn about and implement and facilitate lesson study. So we encourage you to take advantage of as many of those resource opportunities as you can.
I encourage you to come next week for webinar 2. We will be joined by 2 adult education lesson study practitioners, Lisa Gonzalez and Audrey Sakai, who will share their professional learning through lesson study. I want to thank you all for coming to joining us today, and many thanks to Sachiko Oates and Laura Buell for supporting us in this webinar so Jacques and I could focus on the content.
Yes, thanks very much. A couple of people have asked about slides, and I believe the slides are going to be provided, but maybe Sachiko or Laura could add a detail about this. I think they're coming via email afterwards to you. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so for those of you who asked, and even for those of you who didn't, you're going to get the slides.
Thank you, and we hope to,
Thanks, everyone.
the next slide, Laura. Thank you, and we hope to see you next week.
Yeah, please, if you think this was good, it's going to get better and better. So we hope to see you next week and the week after. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.